Good morning. Welcome to our Expert Connections series. I am Julie Holton. I am the principal strategist and owner of Connections Marketing Agency. We have been doing this special live interview series to connect our community with experts that have information to help us all as we navigate through COVID-19. Take a moment, say hello, let us know where you're tuning in from, what your business is, what your involvement is with marketing. We'd love to have you join the conversation throughout our live interview this morning. So, we are now halfway through the year. It has been a difficult 6 months, to say the least. And obviously, there are still so many unknowns ahead, especially for our businesses and for our marketing plans. So we thought it would be good to take time to talk this morning about how do we make the most of the next 6 months? What do we do now to really ensure that we can get the most out of 2020? I know there's been a lot of talk about 2020 has not been our favorite year for most of us. And so how do we turn that around and really use the next 6 months to continue laying a good foundation for our businesses, regardless of all of the unknowns? So this morning, I'm very excited to have three of my favorite marketing minds join me. I have a great panel of experts. Kim Hafley is the Marketing and Recruitment Director at Foster Swift Collins & Smith, law firm with offices across the state of Michigan. Alexis Newman is a marketing strategist with Connections, and Katie Rexroad is a writer and strategist at Connections. Good morning, ladies. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
All right, so we're going to dive right in, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I often say that Kim is one of the most brilliant minds that I know in marketing. She comes up with ideas that just really have a life of their own. And so we've been spending a lot of time, Kim, throughout these last several months since the start of COVID, really talking through how our strategies have changed, what we've done to evolve our businesses and our marketing efforts. And Kim, one of the things that you've said to me that has really stood out is the impact on people, on business owners, on marketers as people, because you look at it as we're all serving kind of dual roles right now. So that's where I want to start. Let's talk about the roles that we're all playing in marketing. Kim, what are your thoughts on this? How has your job shifted since the start of COVID?
Well, I think everybody's job has shifted. We've all had to broaden what it is that we do. And I think this is on a couple fronts. One, I think the range of what we have to do is much broader. If you look at it from a pure traditional marketing standpoint, we have to keep the traditional branding and focus going forward while we're reacting very quickly. We had a couple weeks there where we had new executive orders in Michigan every single day, and we had to respond to those. So we're having to look at the whole spectrum of that. And then I think, we have to look at the tools that we have to use that. It's going from, we still really need to keep the focus on the human element, but we have so much more technology that we have to use today. I think that for anybody who's interested in marketing anymore, you have to be just as passionate about technology and psychology as you are about marketing, because the three are just interwoven so closely together.
Absolutely. And Kim, I really want to emphasize, because, we've seen your firm and your marketing team make a lot of adjustments, like other businesses, working from home versus working in the office, figuring all of that out, those logistics that we've all had to deal with COVID. But on one hand, you still have a business to market. You still have attorneys who are practicing elder law. You have attorneys who, all of these various types of law, and which is still needed. People still need these services. You still need to be getting the word out about your business. But at the same time, you now have the impact of COVID. You have the laws that have changed, the executive orders, getting that information out to businesses, plus just the changes on your business itself as it relates to COVID. So when you talk about, we have to keep the fundamentals going, like the branding, the marketing campaigns, the plans we put in our 2020 strategies, still has a role. But then there's also, as you're saying, this other component, almost this, when we think of guerrilla marketing, we think of this external disruptive marketing campaign out in the public, but really it's been a disruptive internal process where suddenly, let's say in the past, something might have changed in the law, or there might have been an executive order of some sort. You would have maybe turned that around in a day or two, right? You take the time to process, you turn yourself to analyze it, and then you market that information out. I'm guessing your response time is now like day of, as soon as possible, and multiple channels.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing too, and is that, it's the technology component too, in that you're on, the days are definitely longer. B, you have more people trained to do things, because on the offbeat chance you might be in another meeting, you might be somewhere else, or you have a family situation, you need to have somebody else that can get the e-blast out, that can, set up and conduct the Zoom interviews, to get posted to YouTube, to get uploaded to Facebook, there's so many different components. And we actually created a checklist because we found in the very beginning they weren't critical errors, but we just found that there was a couple errors that we made because we were going so fast. And so, we have a couple checklists now. Okay, is the branding there? Like the second video we did, we forgot to put the attorney's contact information at the end of the video. Now, was it simple? Yes, we were able to, take the video down, add the information. We're like, oh, come on, people, So we have that checklist now so that we can go through and go, okay, so we know that we have the key components, what the key topic is, who it needs to go out to, and making sure that they know how to contact us very quickly. And I think that's the other thing too, is really taking a look at the data you're getting. For us, when we started 2020, webinars were not on our marketing plan. We had done them for years. Participation was down. Everybody just felt a little burned out. And if nothing else, COVID really has invigorated those. And we also become a little more creative in how we're doing them. They're not just, lecture only. We're using more of the polling feature. We're really encouraging people to use the Q&A. We're talking more and more. We're doing some creative town hall type meetings. So we're really trying to
let's talk about that a little bit more, Kim, because I think this is something, those of you listening, Sherry, Erica, Lisa, others, thank you for joining us. Kim, you've really made a shift in these webinars. And I love, and I want to emphasize, when we think of webinar, we think of everyone's going to sit back on their computer and watch. And what you're talking about is you've really created this interactive, dynamic environment, for some of them, of course, are, exactly. A lot of information to get out. So it's, the typical webinar style, but these town halls and these others that you have created, these virtual chats with lawyers. I think there's you've seen some success in this that others could learn from and replicate.
It is, and I think at the end of the day, it's going back to that basic old, marketing definition that the American Marketing Association used to have eons and eons ago. That was just one simple sentence that just said, it's about fulfilling, a purchaser's wants or needs. And I think it's really gets down to what are the needs right now. And so, going back to your initial question, what I'm trying to do is balance, okay, what do we need to do to make it so that the Foster Swift is a viable, productive business, because we are in business to make money and to provide livelihoods for a lot of people. And at the same time, what is it that the people we serve, what do they need now? And because we're a full service law firm, that really varies. And the key is not to think that you find one silver bullet. There is no such thing as a silver bullet. It's always going to be some sort of blend. And that's really what we're trying to do with each of our groups. Yesterday, we launched a new program, which was called the Second Wednesday Coffee Break. And it's for our financial institutions and real estate practice group. And it's a short Zoom meeting where we have attorneys on. They're going to provide yesterday's meeting, they provided really quick information on creative collections, because a lot of businesses now are having open accounts, and that why they want to be really supportive of their clients who've been loyal to them. they have bills to pay too, and how you can work with, your clients and your customers to get, to be flexible, but to protect your rights, and what are realistic things to do. And we had, a good turnout. And I think the thing is that having unique dialogues like that gives people a chance to think about it. And then, hey, I know who I can call afterwards. And so,
Absolutely.
and then, being, efficient, we're always trying to recycle. So today, we're not going to repost all of that, but there was one question that was really pretty important, and we're going to clip that up and package it, and that will be our Facebook post for the day with a link to that.
Excellent. So repurposing this important and helpful information that people found value from yesterday. Alexis, I want to turn to you and have you jump in, because one of the things that Kim has mentioned is, and I find this is so COVID, if we want to use that as a verb, that webinars were not on Kim's radar really I'm sure, Kim, you were going to do some webinars at some point, but it was not a main factor, a main strategy that you had put into your 2020 marketing plan. And a lot of this, it's almost comical now, because here we are, 4 months later after the start of the stay-at-home order in Michigan. And how many webinars have you done, Kim? Could you even count off the top of your head?
20.
Over 20. And you've had 900, 1,000 people, a lot of people engaging in each of these webinars. So Alexis, let's talk about strategy. And Katie, you come in here too, but I'm gonna start with Alexis, because one of the things that we've been talking about with our clients is being able to really go back to the basics when it comes to our marketing plan. What are your business goals? And then how does that tie into, as Kim said, what your clients or what your target audience needs from you? So Alexis, thoughts on strategy for those listening that need to adjust?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it, like you said, Julie, is considering, okay, where are our clients now? Like, where are our customers now? They're living online. That's, a lot of our lives have shifted to be much more online than they were in person. So a lot of that thought process has to be, how can I provide the same type of information, the same type of content, the same types of opportunities to my clients and customers, but in a digital way. So Kim, like you said, you have to be really comfortable in that technological space if you're going to be able to make the most of that. You can't be afraid to experiment with video, with lives, with these roundtable discussions. Kim, like you said, with repurposing content, I think that's a huge one, especially as people see their marketing budgets maybe shrinking a little bit or shifting. How can you get the most bang for your buck? And I think online is where you do that. You have one piece of information that gets repurposed in a variety of different ways to reach people across platforms. Maybe people aren't interested or aren't able to watch a webinar, but they're going to read the blog write-up that you're going to post after, or vice versa. Or people are on one social media platform or another, putting information on your website. All of these different approaches are things that I think we have to be a lot more strategic about now, whereas before, some of that might have been a little bit more of an afterthought. If you're focusing on getting people to physically come to you, you're not as focused on, who's maybe just sitting at their computer. But now we're all just sitting at our computers, and we have been for a while, and it looks like we're going to continue to be that way for at least the next few months. So I think just figuring out how you can be strategic and where you can repurpose things and what are the different elements. Also knowing your clients, knowing where your customer base lives and the types of information that they're going to be interested in, and then considering, okay, what's the best vehicle to deliver that information digitally. And Kim and Julie, as you both said, there are tons of options to be able to do that effectively, even as our marketing budgets and approaches adjust a little bit.
Absolutely. Katie, there's a lot of fatigue out there. I know you and I talk about that quite a bit, a lot of fatigue, and also things are changing constantly. So let's talk about fatigue and flexibility. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if COVID's taught us anything, is we're going to be tired and we're going to have to switch quickly. touching upon what Kim talked about earlier, and I've really been thinking about this discussion and going back to our franchising days. Kim and I worked together at 2 Men in a Truck, and there was such a wide range of marketers within the franchise organization. One day Kim and I would be supporting someone who had a team of marketers, and the next day we'd help someone who was a wife and a husband in it. And so it can be really overwhelming, even in normal times. You can be. What we would often find is that people were trying a little bit of everything, but not tracking any of it, and they weren't really following up. They weren't asking their audience. They weren't listening to customers. And so we don't have that. We just don't have time to do that anymore. We don't have that as an option. It's not a good approach. So what I would recommend, and what I do recommend, is check out what your competitors are doing, decide what you're comfortable with for the low-hanging fruit, and that's going to help you with that fatigue and getting over being overwhelmed, and then the flexibility. If you're a Facebook person, then figure out how you can approach a few more people in Facebook. If you're not a social media person, now is the time to start becoming one. I was wondering too, and this is a little bit off topic, Julie, I hope you don't mind, but when you began all the webinars, obviously you're dealing with attorneys. Not all of them are geared toward marketing. They can be very analytical, and so what did you do, Kim, to convince your attorneys the importance of doing these webinars, even though they're probably overwhelmed by the situation and probably don't necessarily want to do the webinar? Like, how did you work through that? Because I think those tips would help anyone today who feel like, I'm not a marketer. I never had to market before. I would just knock on doors, or I'd go to my chamber event. Well, we can't do any of this.
A couple things. One is we kind of partnered a little bit in that there's some of our senior attorneys, they don't feel comfortable with technology, and
Right.
I'm not going to change them. But what I really do encourage people, to your point, is do what you're comfortable with, and there's other things that we have them help with. And in some cases, we've had a couple of our senior attorneys become quite comfortable with it, but they've partnered with somebody who's maybe a little more younger and a little more fluid, and they took more of a supportive role that first time, that comfortable with it, and then like, oh, well, what was I worried about? This wasn't so bad.
Right.
I can close, a $50 million deal, or I can go litigate and win a $10 million judgment. So, okay, getting online and doing a webinar really isn't that big of a deal. So I think, and then word gets around. One of the things, that I think going back again to 2 Men in a Truck days is really sharing the successes internally. And one of the things that we did with COVID is we had a task force, and we met every Friday at 11. And about an hour prior to that, I would send an email out that would have, okay, how many e-blasts did we do? How many people did we reach? How many opens did that show on the website? How many people tuned into our webinar? How many people forwarded that? And so they had that information. So when they started looking at that, they saw, okay, there's some value to participating in this. And we tried to be really aggressive about tracking that information. And certainly there's information I wish we would have tracked that we, it was just hard. But just that little bit of encouragement really helped. And I think the other thing that was interesting is some of the clients' responses. Being a professional service business, you get that feedback, and clients just appreciate it. Like I mentioned earlier, some of our our older attorneys didn't feel like they really wanted to do a webinar. But you know what they did feel comfortable doing? They felt comfortable taking that e-blast or link to that webinar saying, hey, I really thought this might be of value to you. And what? When their senior attorney took the time to send that email saying, hey, the value, guess what? They watched it. And you know what? I really need to do X, Y, and Z.
And I think a small business owner, assuming, that's really who we're trying to help right now, can really scale that to their small business. Even if you're a team of 2 or 3, you should be touching base and talking about the successes and what have you seen working, what have you not, and it's that communication. I mean, we talk about it all the time, obviously, but that internal communication is just as important as that external communication. One of the key points, I think, too, in the blog that was posted in Connections is allowing your employees to be ambassadors for your brand. You might have someone on your team who's super good at Facebook. Well, let's use that person. They might have a lot to offer for you, and they might enjoy doing that for you. You know, tap into the resources that you have so you don't become fatigued and you don't get overwhelmed. Your spouse, you might have, you know, your need, you don't know it, even if you're a very small business, there are always people who could try to help you, who probably want to help you. And I think especially now in the time that it is, now we're tapping into that a little bit more. I mean, it's like going back to the grassroots, but behind the screen, instead of going into the different networking events. You're networking from your desk. So you have to get
Absolutely.
I think that's so true. And I think, you know, one of the comments that I've heard from some of our attorneys is, well, you know, everybody's busy. I don't want to bother anybody. I don't want to intrude, you know, and I understand, you know, wanting to respect boundaries, but what I encourage them is people want to know that you care. This is a stressful and trying time for everyone. And to your point, everyone's fatigued. And sometimes just having somebody else that is a service provider reach out to you and go, how are you doing? You know, is there anything that, you know, I can assist with? Or, hey, I saw this article and thought it might be of interest, or we're hosting this. But people do respond to that, and they appreciate that, and they remember that. And, you know, there's all this technology. To Alexis's point, you know, we need to use technology, but we need to also incorporate that human factor into the technology as we're using it, so people still feel that touch point. Because, you know, it's going to be we have opened our offices on a limited basis for certain types of things. And, you know, we have all these signs around, you know, a no handshake zone, and, you know, X marks the spot for social distancing. And, you know, we still need to have something out there, you know, that communicates that human element. And right now that's our voice, be it, you know, the spoken word or the written word.
Yeah, Kim, you know, you and I were talking about that. And I think if we drive home anything to, you know, from this panel today, it's really the reminder to stay in touch with that human element. We talk a lot about authenticity in our marketing and being genuine in how we're conveying our messaging. But it's not just about the messaging, it's about people connecting with people, right? And we're all going through this. Our journeys may be different, but we're all on this journey. None of us want to be here. And Kim, you and I were talking about, okay, how do we convey that in how we word an email? How do we send out that e-blast with all of this critical information that we know needs to get into the hands of our clients, while at the same time connecting with them and letting them know that we are genuinely here? And I was talking the other day with a client too, and sometimes it's as simple as picking up the phone. Yes, we're in front of our computer screens, and yes, we're socially distant or physically distanced right now, but picking up the phone, texting, calling, asking how someone's doing, checking in. If you are a business owner that right now is a team of one, or if you are a marketing department of one, you're not really a department of one. Tap into your network. Tap, whether it's your social network, your business network. If you don't have a strong network, reach out and get connected. The emergence of Facebook groups, whether they're community groups, marketing groups, business development groups, there are so many groups that you can get involved in and really create those connections, because those connections are what keep us fueled up for the rest of this year and this journey we still have to go. So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about some of the strategies and just kind of brainstorm with you guys on what we're looking at for the next 6 months. There's been a lot of talk, you know, of course we see the memes on Facebook and the jokes about like, okay, ready for 2021, like bring it on. But 2020 is not over. Yes, I can't believe we are halfway through the year, but we are. And so whether it's been a good 6 months or not, or maybe you're just treading water at the moment, let's look at the next 6 months and where we go from here. So Kim, I'd love to hear, to the extent that you can share, you know, what's one thing that you're really looking ahead to in the next several months? Of course, knowing that, you know, our governor here in Michigan has a press conference in about 5 minutes. And so
right.
We know that there are more developments coming out all the time and unexpectedly. But with that in mind, you know, how are you looking ahead to the next couple of months here?
You know, I think there's probably three things. One is we really took a look at our own business goals and figured out what we needed to do to adjust those so that we felt that we had realistic, achievable goals for the end of the year. Because, sometimes that gap gets huge if you don't take a look at it. So overall, we had to make a couple minor adjustments, but nothing major. But I think we're going to feel better at the end of the year for having made those adjustments. I also think that they were really helpful in identifying what we want to do and what we feel is important for us to do between now and the end of the year. And really it comes down into 2 points. And that is, we need to help all of our business clients in the continuity of their business. And depending on what they are and what industry they're in, that's going to change. So we need to really kind of be sure that we're there for them, be proactive, and continue in our role as their trusted advisor to make sure we do that. And then there's the more individual side, because whether we like it or not, we all sometimes have individual business needs, whether it's selling our home, making sure our estate plans are up to date, whatever that may look like, and coming up with some new tools for that. One of the programs that has taken a little different light for us this year is our elder law program. And that was a program that was really slated for a lot of investment time this year anyway. But COVID has changed that a little bit too, because it's really hard to get together and sign. We now have an order so you can do virtual signings. People are realizing that things sometimes go quickly and you don't always have tomorrow. So, we're really putting some tools out there to help the clients and friends of the firm deal with those senior law moments and what we can do to help them get through that so that there is quality of life for the senior, and so that we have really help them implement their end of life plans. So those are kind of our two big plans as we roll down for the end of 2020. Obviously, with 100 attorneys and 6 offices, there's so many mutations of that,
right. Well, and Kim, one thing that I love hearing, and just kind of like to bring this into maybe kind of some context for those who are watching and relating this back to their own businesses, you're talking, elder law as an example, on the surface, maybe perhaps isn't directly tied to COVID and to the events happening, but you've really looked at your tactics for how you were planning to promote this practice area and how to disseminate this information. And you've looked at that and said, okay, how is COVID impacting this? How does that messaging change? And how we're communicating that message need to change? So we've seen you employ a number of tactics. Your attorneys have done radio interviews. There have been, we've done some videos, interviews like this, and really, and tying it back into what is top of mind for people. And so I think that's really a great example of how you have evolved one of your business goals for the year. And you're still focusing on your business. You're still focusing on the people you serve, adjusting your messaging, adjusting how you're transmitting that message. And that's really we can apply that to any business across the board. How are we shifting, a goal that you might still have for this year? How do you take that goal and look at, okay, your target audience, how is that audience being impacted by COVID? How does that tie back into your goal? How do you then shift your messaging? So great example, looking ahead, all is not lost from our marketing plan. If we're being really real right now, I don't know that I've really thought about, I've thought about it, but I haven't really looked at, I haven't dusted off our M Connections marketing plan in the last several months. We had this beautiful plan. We were going to grow and do these different things. And I can tell you the Expert Connection series was not in that plan. But we've spent a lot of time working on this show and this series. And it's been a great adjustment for us to be doing this, but that doesn't mean that all is lost in our plan either. There's still ways for us to be moving our business forward, but just making adjustments along the way. Alexis, what are some of your thoughts? What's one tip from you as businesses are adjusting their plans for the next 6 months? How do we start to look at this, maybe even in bite-sized pieces, because we don't know, things are adjusting so much. What's one thought that you have moving forward with strategy?
That's a great question. So, sales and cash flow, those two things are always going to be top of mind. That's always going to be, at the forefront for any business. But as we know, the economy, is on an unpredictable path, in the time of COVID. And so, while spending, remains questionable and some of those things are a little bit harder to predict, I think figuring out what else you can focus on that can help strengthen your business. A lot of times I think that, Kim, like you said, that authenticity, that human connection is so key. And sometimes that can get lost. Sometimes we are so focused on sales and, bringing in new clients and, how can we make money? And those things are really important. And we don't want to not focus on those things. But Julie, I remember one of the things that we talked about way at the beginning when COVID first started was, okay, how can we look at this as an opportunity? So instead of focusing on the things that now we can't do, or, we can't do the way we wanted to, what are some opportunities that we have that we might not have had? So focusing on things like that human connection, like building, brand and business loyalty. How can you highlight your ties to the community? There's a really big push for people to shop local and support local. For many of our clients and many small businesses, that's a small local business. So how can you capitalize on that? How can you make partnerships with other businesses, other people in the community, strengthening old relationships or creating new ones? All of those kind of human elements that we can still do and maybe sometimes get pushed aside in our marketing plans, but we have an opportunity to bring those things to the front and to really put those things full focus. So I think that would be my suggestion, would be to look at some of these things and figure out, okay, what are some creative ways that we can focus on other brand and business elements that are going to help strengthen us for when this does pass and we can get back to, what we think of as business as usual. Are we going to have strengthened ourselves in the meantime?
Alexis, I like that, especially because, there's so many phrases out there. I know people are getting tired of hearing the new normal. We've talked about the next normal. Obviously, it's not business as usual, all of those phrases. But and we know this is not going to end anytime soon. This is obviously something that's ongoing. Katie, turning to you, what tactics come top of mind for you as we look at the rest of 2020?
Well, obviously, like Alexis said, budget and cash flow is going to be probably, honestly, the most important thing. So prioritizing your marketing is going to be even more important because, like you said, we don't know what's going to happen. Here in Tennessee, they just extended through the end of August. We're regressing phases. We were going to 3 and now we're back to 2. And so locally here for me, the economy is shifting back, is regressing. So if you're a small business, you don't want to spend money you don't know you're going to have in a few months. And so it goes back to what we were talking about before, is like, what are the low-hanging fruit that you can do that will make the greatest impact? What are you most comfortable with? Don't get overwhelmed by marketing tactics that maybe you're not ready for. Now's not the time to necessarily experiment. Let's talk about things that are going to actually help you. Social media is a great thing. Email, interfacing, checking in. These are all things that take time, but they don't necessarily take money. Training your staff to be brand ambassadors. If you're a service and you're out in the field, making sure that you're wearing your wearing your brand, like start a conversation. You could be in the grocery store with your mask on and have your logo on, and maybe someone will see that. There's always ways to talk about your business. And one thing that I did want to say is that, Kim, your team has done a really good job of becoming subject matter experts. Obviously they were before, but when all of the different orders were coming out, I would go to, even though I'm not living in Michigan right now, I still own property and my parents are there. I would go and read what Foster Swift was saying. Okay, this is what this means for you. If you're, if you're this, then this means this. So you are a subject matter expert in your business. Let people know. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a sales pitch. And for example, Puro Clean, they're a great subject matter expert. about toxic cleanup and things like that. Crystal Garden, another client we work with. I enjoy what they have to say about, gosh, what are people doing now with their wedding planning, and become that subject matter expert, because along one of the things I think Alexis was talking about too is the sensitivity of how everyone's feeling. We don't want you to seem insincere in your brand. You're not insincere. I know you're desperate to get sales and keep it going, but your best approach is to just share information and be open and be approachable, and everybody's a little bit scared right now. Last night was the first night I've gone out to dinner since March. And I was with girlfriends who are all at different stages, and their husbands are worried about their jobs. And I mean, everybody feels like that, I'm sitting in a restaurant with a mask on. It's bizarre. So let's just own that. And as a business owner, help your clients and customers and potential customers get past all of this with the resources you have.
One thing that I've heard all of you say, Katie, those are great tips. I mean, write those down. Those are excellent. One thing I hear all of you saying is help other people. Isn't that our best marketing tactic right now?
Yeah.
To just genuinely connect with our clients, connect with our community. And hands down, when we started this series, the whole idea was to help our community. We had clients asking us questions, and it was like the fastest way to get the answers out, the information out, was to just go live and share it, right? But better to have the answers coming from the experts. And so that's how this series developed. And it wasn't really a marketing tactic. It evolved into that because of what we've been, the connections we've been able to make. But it really continues to be genuinely connecting with and helping people. Katie, such an important point. No matter what type of business you have, we have Nathan Creswick who's on. He's a farmer, owns Creswick Farms. Wonderful. Check out creswickfarms.com. Nathan is obviously a subject matter expert when it comes to farming, when it comes to the foods the organic foods and meats that he provides. He has been using that, I know, throughout, even prior to COVID, but using that to really share information. There have been food shortages. And so thinking back to the toilet paper shortages, from the very beginning. But, but there have been things that Nathan's been able to add his insight into, his input, and just making sure that his customers know, I'm here for you. We've got you covered. Here's when we're open. Here's what we're doing to make sure you stay safe when you come out to our store. Here are the new services we're now providing as far as delivery, things like that. Just connecting with people, whatever your subject matter might be. Any final thoughts? Let's do a round robin before we close out here. Anything we haven't talked about, or anything that you really want to share as far as looking through to the rest of 2020? Alexis, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. Yes. So Katie and Kim, you both brought up different points way earlier in our discussion that I think go super well together. And Kim, that is looking at metrics. So looking at metrics to evaluate the success of what you're doing, of your new approaches. And Katie, you brought up not trying to do everything. So every possible marketing approach is not going to work for your specific business. So being deliberate, and those metrics are what's going to help you be deliberate, because you can, try some new things and then evaluate, is this bringing me the success that I was looking for? Is the return on investment, worth it in comparison to what I was expecting? Especially if you're trying new things or new online tactics, new digital tactics that maybe you haven't tried before. So I think that those two things go so well hand in hand. Is, be deliberate with what you're doing, be purposeful, know why you are taking the steps that you're taking. Don't just take them, just because you think that you have to be doing something. Put some of that consideration behind it, and then follow it up with the metrics, and use that to help guide you so that you can really be successful, and so that those approaches will really help support your business.
Kim.
One thing, kind of going back to where we earlier talked about, was technology and using it. And I'm sure that many of the small business owners out there get at least 2 sales calls a day from somebody that wants to market them the best next marketing software, this, that, or anything else. And it's really easy to say no to everything. And what I would encourage you is look at it with an open eye. You don't have to do anything right now, but it never hurts to know what's out there and why this iteration might not be great. Others maybe. Look at what your trade association is recommending and using. And I think the other thing too is if something is really intriguing to you, see if they'll give you a free trial. Most of the time right now out there with some of the marketing technology, and think about a very specific test that you can try to see if it's going to work for you and pay for you. And if it is not, then don't do it. But a lot of times I find even in the process of looking at some of this new technology, you get really great ideas on how to communicate with your client base that maybe you hadn't thought of, or it gives you a different angle. So keep your eyes open. And while we're all hunkering down to get through 2020 and to make sure we're, keeping the foundation branding going and to keep the, reacting to what's going on a day-to-day basis, always be forward focused, because at some point we will get back to really growing our businesses in a way that's a little more traditional to what we're used to.
Yes, hopefully sooner than later. But great tips in the meantime. Katie, over to you.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing to consider, and I'm a glass half empty kind of girl anyways, but try not to be that person. Don't get sucked into the abyss of what's happening. 2020 is the worst, and I certainly have fought my own personality to not do that. But now is the time you have time that you have never had before to really look at your business and a self-audit and look at your customers. Maybe it's possible that this whole time you haven't really even been reaching the audience that you've been hoping to get. Like, take a minute to really audit what you've been doing, and then also to look at what competitors are doing and see what charitable organizations are doing in your community that you can partner with. We didn't really get to touch upon that piece, but I think that is essential. Depending on what your business is, there's always a charity looking for help. And that's, again, you don't have to donate money. Maybe you're delivering something, maybe you're collecting something, maybe you're helping them promote a cause. I mean, there are a lot of people who are unemployed right now who need additional support. Maybe you can help that. When you're out in the community, whether it's via laptop or actually delivery, you're going to be able to impact more people in a positive way and build your brand even more. Just try not to, just try to stay on the positive side, which I know is stupid, but there are good things happening right now. So be part of that.
Such a great point, Katie. I'm so glad that you wrapped up with that. Really great marketing tactics as we finish out 2020, or at least focus on these small baby steps that we're taking towards the end of the year. Look, my advice would be, start small. You don't have to, we've talked about this a little bit. You don't have to tackle everything at once. Pick a platform, pick a medium, pick something, start there, and don't look, if looking out the next 6 months is overwhelming, don't. Look at the next month. Look at the next few weeks, the next month, the next 2 months. Take it a month at a time if you have to. That's okay. The important thing is to not be so fearful that we're paralyzed into not taking action for the next 6 months, because we still have 6 months left. Katie, I'm a glass full kind of gal, so I like to think I'm realistic. So maybe sometimes it is half full, but let's look at reset happens now. How do we move forward? And then my last tip as we wrap up today is not even necessarily marketing related. It's just human related. Reach out, connect. If you are feeling fatigued, if you are feeling like you need a break, take one. Because we've also learned that as much work as we have to get done today, there's always tomorrow. And so whether you need a couple hours today, whether you need the day, we've got a whole series of interviews with mental health experts who talk about the impact of COVID and what that is taking on us as well. So take the time that you need. Don't take a couple weeks off if you can't afford to do that. But take some time. connect with others, and know that you're not alone as you're adjusting your marketing strategies. We're available for one-on-one consultations. Even if your budget is not where you want it to be, connect with us anyway. We'll figure this out. It really helps to connect with other people, even for a half-hour brainstorming session to talk through strategies and plans. So Kim, thank you so much for joining our team today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really love hearing your insights and look forward to seeing what comes next with your attorneys. Best way to get a hold of Kim is through Foster Swift's website, fosterswift.com. So if you have any follow-up questions, if you'd like to tap into some of these webinars and ideas that she was talking about today from her attorneys, also great resources. They've been a great resource for me as a business owner, in addition to being a marketer. So definitely connect fosterswift.com, and of course mconnections.com for the rest of us. We also have, just to quickly point out, we've done more than 50 of these Expert Connections interviews. So we've got more marketing ideas for you. We've got interviews with attorneys, mental health experts, you name it, we probably have it. So go ahead and look in our Facebook video feed for those. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you back here next time.